We on? We on? Okay. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, thank you all for tuning in. Congregation, thank you all for coming today. Like us on YouTube at Pastor Jeffrey Goodine. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. Like us on Facebook. Follow us at Church on Wheels, Let the Good News Roll. Facebook Live, Jeffrey Goodine. Twitter, at Goodine Jeffrey. Instagram, Goodine Jeffrey. Clubhouse, Church on Wheels Ministry. Thank you all for tuning in. Tonight it is time for TNT, which is Thursday Night Tidbits and Tunes with Diane.
Can you do an intro first about what you want to talk about?
Okay. Tonight is the call of Gideon, and this is a very familiar text. If you think about it, if you've seen the movie 300, that's based loosely on Gideon.
Is it not like some Roman Empire type movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
300 is based lightly on Gideon. And you'll find out that Gideon had the same, the same makeup per se as King David when he was called. But Gideon was called during a time when they really didn't have any kings. They had judges. They had people that rose and delivered them and led the people. They were judges, and they had both men and women judges. So today we're going to talk about the call of Gideon. Diane, are you ready? Okay, Diane is ready now. Thursday Night Tidbits and Tunes with Diane.
Well, thank you. October 27th, 2022. It's going by fast, guys.
Right.
Church on Wheels coming to you live. Well, tonight's song is Trust in You. And it's one of those songs that when I started learning Christian songs, that's one of the first ones I learned. And it stuck out to me. It's not an old song by any means. Lauren Daigle, just a young girl out there making hits. And so she's very popular. And Trust in You. Well, if you really want to go right to the meat and potatoes, what are you going to trust in, right? You like Pastor, you always say, people, I hope this and I hope that. Well, it comes right back down to this trust. And where's she from? She's from Lake Charles, Louisiana. She was born in 1990. She's got these monster hits on YouTube, and this is one of them. And let me read to you just some of the lyrics, because you may not pick it up while I'm singing them. And well, I think the first one, just right out of the gate. Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weak, I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I face, you're by my side. Well, I hope somebody gets a blessing out of this one tonight. And there you go.
My hands are weary and I need
heaven. Your ways are always higher. Your plans are always good. There's not a place where I'd go you've not already stood. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. Trust in you. You gotta place your trust in the right spot, right?
Amen.
And in closing, there's a lot of things we can go into. So one of them was Isaiah 12:2. God is my salvation, I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord himself is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. And the last one I thought was also part of the song, Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. I thought, oh, okay. So there's so many directions you can go with this trust. Not just faith, but just every application, I guess, in life. Amen.
Amen.
One more time.
Amen.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. And you know what? That kind of goes into what the Bible study is about tonight, about trusting. And you know that's and Diane and she, you know, everyone that's been tuning in, you know she has a lovely voice. She always has something for Bible study, always has something for you. And so we want to thank her for always bringing something to the table. And you know, I just want you all to know, you know, that I'm 27% of that. So you know,
I'm glad it hasn't changed.
it's 27%. So if you call her up, you would really want. In fact, come to the church and you could hear her for free. How about that? Come to Bible study and come to Sunday worship service, and you can listen to her for free. Any other time, it's going to cost you, and then I'm 27% of that. Okay, so that ought to force you to come to this church and listen to her for free. Tonight, the call of Gideon. Oh yes, Facebook, YouTube, okay, hold on, let me get it right. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse. If you want a copy of the handout, send me an email, PastorJeffreyGoodine@gmail.com. That's PastorJeffreyGoodine@gmail.com. And I will add you to the list, and you will get a handout and a worksheet for Bible study. So, and I will add you to the list and make sure that you be a part of it. You can tune in, invite a friend, have a watch party. Tonight, the call of Gideon. This is the book of Judges, Judges chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, and then 7 to 16. Anybody want to read that?
I'll read.
All right.
The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites.
Yes.
Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountains, clefts, caves, and strongholds.
Okay.
The next one?
Verse 7.
All right. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live, but you have not listened to me. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah, and belonged to Joash the Bizarite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in the winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? What are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us unto the hands of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. I am not sending you. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, whatever, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Mennonites, leaving none alive."
Okay, thank you. The Midianites. Does anybody know the history of the Midianites?
Can you refresh us?
Moses.
Moses married a man.
Moses married a Midianite.
Yeah.
That's right.
He married a Midianite.
Yes.
So now him fleeing and going into, fleeing from Pharaoh, he went to Jethro, who was a Midianite, and he married one of his daughters and stayed there for some years tending the sheep. And this is when he saw the burning bush. This is when he talked to God. God told him to take his shoes off. He's on holy ground. God told him to stand in the crack of the mountain so that he could not look on him when he passed by. This is the people that Moses was with, the Midianites. And now we at war. Now they're at war. So you see how life changes. And again, like Diane said, from a distance it looked like we're friends, but really we're at war. And here, Moses, who led God's people out of Egypt, married into the Midianites. So if he had children, his children were Midianites. And yet years later, the people he delivered are at the war with his ancestors, with his people.
His in-laws.
Yeah, his in-laws. So you would have that. Now, the background, the book of Judges features accounts of a series of leaders we call judges who arose to rescue Israel from foreign oppressions. And if Israelites sinned, God punished them with foreign oppression. Israelites repented, a deliverer came, and peace followed. Gideon, the deliverer judge, was the fifth of approximately 14 judges. The oppressor was the Midianites, who came from the region of present-day Saudi Arabia or southeast Jordan. And the pattern that we've noticed over the time in our following along in the Bible, you will notice that the people would sin, then servitude, then supplication, where's their prayers, and then salvation, they would be delivered. That is the MO of God's people. The key verse, again, is not in our scripture for tonight, but it is Judges 6:23 says, "But the Lord said to him, 'Peace, do not be afraid, you are not going to die.'" And this is God calling Gideon. And we notice when they went to anoint David, they went to the house of Jesse, and Jesse brought all his sons. And then he said, "Don't you have another son?" He said, "Yeah, but he's out in the field. You know, scrawny, he's out tending the sheep." He said, "That's the one I need to see." So here again we have two different people, but they're both doing the same thing. In essence, when God calls them, they're not from, I guess, strength or whatever you want to call it. But God gave them the strength. God gave them the strength.
They weren't the warriors.
Right, they weren't the warriors. But David's, his reign was nothing but war. When you read the book of David, when he took over as king, his whole reign was war. His whole reign was war. And that's why they say David had blood on his hand. He had blood on his hand because he was always at war. Now, Judges chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. The Midianite oppression says the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Now the number 7, we noticed that the Babylonian was 70 years. So 7 is a significant number. And in this instance, it was 7 years.
Does that make it completion?
Yeah. That 7 years that he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. And then, because of the power, they were so oppressive, they built themselves homes in, caves, trying to get away from the Midianites. And if you read from verses 3 to 7, or 3 to 6, you will notice that every time they grew something, the Midianite and the Amorites would come in, destroy it all, kill all the animals, and leave. And leave them destitute. That's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. So they were hiding from them. So we see that when we do things against God, he delivers us into the hands of the enemy. And when we call on him, sincerely call on him, he hears us, he answers, and then he punishes the people that he put over us. So when we talk about what the call is, that here is an instance where someone during the time of Judges, Israel did the same broken record story. They think things are going good, then they go after other gods, they sin against God, then God would send an oppressor in, and then they would be oppressed for a while, and then they would cry and they would repent for their sins, they would call on him, and then he raises up a deliverer and delivers them and brings peace. Yes?
You said 7-year punishment, like in the number 1A, and you know what I was reading in Revelation the other day? Why is there so many numbers in Revelation? And
Hold on now.
is there also, I just kind of Googled it up, and it said, this gentleman here's talking about, I took about trigonometry and calculus, but he said he felt that there was often mathematical language.
Okay.
Is there things that are said in numbers, like when he talks about, like in the Revelation, there was 7 this, and then it goes great details of the numbers.
Right, numbering in the numbers, when they talk 3 is considered a number of the Trinity.
Yes.
Okay, 7 is a number of completion. That's because, in other words, on the 7th day, God rested. He was finished. So that's where 3 and 7 comes in.
Okay. I just didn't know like how deep.
Yeah, now there is numerology. There is some numbers have specific meanings in the universe when you're talking numerology. Okay? Yeah, numbers in the universe, like number 8. Okay? 8 has a connotation to money. Okay? All of the numbers in numerology. Okay? In numerology. But in the Bible, the numbers 3 and 7. 3 deals with the Trinity, and then 7 is completion. Okay? And those numbers, you will see them throughout the Bible.
40 is another number. 40 is another
Yes,
number.
40. That was
They were in the
significant.
desert for
The
40
40 years that they was in,
The 40 days.
40, yeah.
The 40 years.
40 years, right. And then you had the number 70, that was the number of years that they were in captivity. 70 years, the Babylonian captivity.
So would you say that some of these numbers are almost like certain words in Hebrew mean certain things and
Yes. Oh well. Yeah. As I said before, the number of when we speak of translations in the Bible, a lot of scholars will say if you don't know Greek or Hebrew, then you don't know the Bible.
Well,
Because they were written in Greek and Hebrew, and the translations, because a lot of words don't translate.
so they're really, some of these people are really slicing and dicing it right down to
Yes.
whatever they
Yeah.
do it at.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the Jewish alphabet, each character represents a
Right.
number and a object besides being a letter. And that's the 3 I heard. And then I heard later, just recently, that actually each one has 5 meanings.
Yes, a lot of the lettering in that alphabet has meanings, and that's one of the arguments they have against the validity of the Bible, is because the translations from Greek, some of these words don't translate. Some of the letters don't translate over. One they use particular is the letter J. The letter J is not in the alphabet, but it's in our alphabet. And so what they're saying, and this is the argument that a lot of them that they use, and that's why a lot of the theologians are quick to say that if you do not speak Greek and Hebrew, you cannot read Greek and Hebrew.
Oh, so they're saying we don't have a full picture,
Right.
but we do have the meat and potatoes.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Right. that you just don't know, because things that could not be translated over. And that's one of the arguments and things. So my stance is, I have what I have in front of me, which is, the King James, which is the Bible. I've got that. And if we're into semantics, if we're into splitting hairs, then by all means, you got it.
It's like almost studying
because
like 2-3 different languages
right,
at that point.
because I don't speak Greek and Hebrew, I barely speak English. I speak jive, they want to say, but Greek and Hebrew, no, I don't.
So Greek to you?
Yeah, that's all Greek to me.
There's a,
Pastor,
Yeah.
you know what?
What?
Believe it or not, look what I got on my phone, what I just pulled right on there, trying to get it, but I got it.
I've been
Let's
following.
say about the Bible.
It wrote this whole series.
And they're talking about the Bible, about the Bible, all right, about chapter 6, chapter 7, and all that.
Okay, good.
Amazing
I
way
just got it down on my YouTube.
I was showing you that, that's what she was talking about,
Yeah.
the different numbers.
Different numbers, right.
And how it can be translated from Hebrew in Hebrew.
Okay,
Whole country match.
Give us the jive version. How would I hear this?
that's a different. Yeah, me too. But you know, we'll talk. We'll
You
talk.
mentioned the King James,
okay.
tell Diane, I'll send her this link of this,
hold
this
on, Robert.
old country pastor that's been following for years. And he does this amazing, you know, it's very interesting, this series called the King James Code. And he does several videos in that series on that. He's been, you know, he's a real King James Version purist, and how the different numbers and words and phrases are repeated and laid out in certain exact spots to match where they were in another chapter. It's really, or another book, excuse me, in the Bible, and it's just really fascinating, you know.
Yeah, and I think, and you're right. These numbers have significance.
Yeah, he said that really did it for him with the King James. This code, like, not, yeah, he said it just.
Light bulb moment?
Yeah, you just can't keep having that many coincidences, and they be, you know, it was just amazing.
And they're all used the same way.
Yeah.
In another book.
Right.
You know,
And I think a lot of that too is God is showing by doing that. You know, everyone goes, "Oh, a bunch of men wrote the Bible. They probably high on mushrooms." But I mean, you know, God's divine inspiration through these men. How would they know to put all these things? Because that Bible was written across many
Yes.
years.
Yes.
And for these things to show up in certain spots, exactly matching where they were in another.
How can they-
And yeah, so one of them has an inventory, and it was just, I mean, how can you
yeah.
do that?
And do you know? And I say that when we talk about the Bible, man is not smart enough to do anything like this. He's not smart enough.
No.
He's not smart enough to, over the course of years, centuries, to write the same thing. One thing I always say, there is no second edition of the Bible. There is no new and improved edition. You know, I mean, they've taken it and translated it, but they've used the foundation, and the Bible hasn't changed. And the thing about it is, when the Bible was written, now in this time, we see things in the Bible that they're talking about that's happening right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but this was written centuries ago. And it is inspired by God. Man ain't smart enough to do that. Man, I mean, we can do, I mean, you know, we can kind of come up and say, well, you know, tomorrow it's going to rain, you know, I mean, you know, but.
That's why Jesus said it's a living, breathing, you know, it never died.
Right.
It's true today as it was 2,000 some odd
Right,
years.
and predicting something 2,000 years into the future.
So it doesn't matter if it's a Jewish calendar, I have a hard time understanding the race.
Yeah, it is something that, you know, that when phrases being used in the Bible, in these different books, they mean the same thing. So that meant that the person that wrote this book and the person that wrote this book,
Several hundred years away.
you know, several hundred years apart, saying the same thing and using it the same way. So it had to be God inspired. Well, to me, it has to be God inspired. Now, however you look at it, I mean, the Bible is the Bible. You know, I mean, that's one book that has not ever been refuted. Although they have tried. They have tried. It has not been refuted yet.
Fact checkers got nowhere.
Right. And there is no second edition.
When you say refuted, meaning,
Try to find fault with it.
like how people say, oh, there's missing chapters.
Yeah, you know, that people, you know, I always say this, if you want to know if you've made it, someone goes after your theory, you've made it. Because I say an author has made it when somebody else, you know, in the research industry, when somebody reads your research and attacks your research, you've made it. That means it was interesting enough for them to read it and to try to find fault with it. So I say if they go to find fault with it, they had to read it to find fault with it. Well, when you're reading it and you come into your own conclusion. You would have to take what they read and then try to refute it. Which means you must use their resources, you must use theirs, everything that they use to try to refute what it is that they're saying. But they have yet to do that to the Bible, although they have tried.
I think in God's infinite wisdom, people that try to fact check it to prove it wrong, if you really try to do that in earnest, that means you got to study it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And when you start doing that, all of a sudden you go, oh wow, man.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
The light goes off.
Yeah, the light goes on. So, but they've tried.
Yeah.
They've tried. So now we back to Gideon now. Remember now, Israel, God's people, and we know that today, that God's people, when things are going good, they lose track of God in essence. They sin against God, then he sends the foreign oppressor. Then they cry out and repent. God hears their cry, raises up a deliverer, and then peace is restored. That's the sequence. So, here in verse 1, we see that they did evil in the sight of Albert. Pop, top in. Albert. Calm down.
Uh-oh, I got it.
They did evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, I put idol worship here, and I put it in parentheses, is because it didn't really say what they did in particular, but based on some of the other areas they knew, this is where idol worship comes into play. But this one didn't say what they just said that they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And one of those can be idol worshiping. I mean,
And that happened a lot.
right, and trust me, Jesus wasn't going, Moses wasn't going that long before he come back, and they done built a golden calf. He wasn't going that long.
40 days.
Yeah. So, but that was a 7-year punishment for that, into the hand of the Midianites. Now put, how can you tell whether hard times are God's judgment for sin or simply the result of living in a fallen world? Now, some will say today that this world is a fallen world, that we're living in a fallen world. All depends on who you talk to. The hard times that we are going through, is it God's judgment? Now you hear a lot of people say that the COVID thing was God's punishment. Look, God don't need COVID for that. Trust me. Okay? Trust me. But some people feel that way. By all means, if that's the way you think, then by all means you go that route. But God, I'm going to tell you right now, God don't need no COVID to wipe people out. Now, the hard times in our lives, could it be a result of some sin that we did that we don't want nobody to know? Or is it just a fact of, it comes with the territory, the world that we live in? The world that we live in, does it just come with the territory? Now, how would your reaction differ between the two? Well, if you think it's God's judgment, then I put it, if we say it's God's judgment, it's acceptable. If we say it's because of a fallen world, we would consider that unacceptable, because we're supposed to be in the world but not of the world. So then we're being punished for being in the world as a result of being in the world when we're not of the world. So you can look at it from that perspective. But here, they did evil in the eye of the Lord. Now, you'll see that quite a bit. They lead with that. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now, what we consider good, he considers it bad. In God's eye, we were wrong. In God's eye. But in man's eye, it might be right. It just might be right in man's eye. So they were punished. Now, verse 2, because of their punishment, they were running and hiding in caves from the people, building strongholds and fortresses. And that word right there is supposed to be they. So if you cross that out and put, instead of the, you put they, add a Y there. They built strongholds, fortresses, protecting themselves. Because the Midianites were the oppressors. And they were sent by God. Now ain't that something? For as their punishment. So a lot of times, yeah, Diane.
When I hear strongholds, I always thought of it being, I guess like a negative word, like a stronghold, like something that's, taken a stronghold of a person.
Okay.
And a stronghold could also be a structure?
Yes, a fortress. Yeah, we're building a fort, a stronghold. Think of, the castles with the moats around them.
Yes.
Strongholds.
A fortress.
A fortress.
Okay, I did not,
Right.
never knew that
A stronghold,
that was used for that.
Yes, as a fortress. Now, and if you read from verses 3 to 6, you'll see that this is what they were doing to them. Killing their crop. Killing their animals, invading. Whenever it come harvest time, they run in and destroy all of the crops and kill the animals and run them back up into the caves. Punishment. And this punishment, God sent those people. God sent the Midianites as punishment for what they did. But they cried. Now, if you look at verse 7. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, they cried. We cry out to God. We just don't want nobody to know. But yes, in our times of trouble in the midnight hour, yes, we do. We call on it.
You live long enough, you will.
Yeah. They cried out because of Midian, because of them, because of the oppression. They cried out during their oppression. He sent them a prophet. Now, this is an unknown prophet. Even though it's a prophet, the Bible does not give a name for this prophet.
Witness protection.
Who said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. And this is what he, if you're thinking, the message is the same message grounded in Exodus. This message is the message of the Exodus, which is, I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians. And I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. So now they're talking about the Exodus. He's talking about the 40 years in the desert. And he's talking about them going over into the promised land. So he's reminding them of this God. That I am the same God. That this God, this is what the Lord said. Remind you that I have done this for you. Says, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live. But he said, but you have not listened to me. He's letting them know what they did. So, this prophet brings a message that is grounded in the story of the Exodus. Now the Exodus has already happened. So now here in their time of trouble, in their oppression by the Midianites, he sends a prophet to them with words of encouragement, I guess. This is the story of the Exodus. When you read Exodus, that's it in a nutshell. Note, what are some ways to warn people of God's judgment while speaking truth in love? Truth hurts. I mean, right now the truth hurts. Because he said, listen, I am the Lord your God. Remember, I brought you up out of slavery. We talk about the ancestors and things. I brought you out of slavery. You know, I rescued you. I drove out people before you. I told you not to worship those, gods of the people you are amongst, not amongst the Amorites. I told you not to do it, but you have not listened to me. Now that's speaking truth in love, because God loves you. God is love. Now if he's speaking truth and it hurts, well, I don't know. But he did tell them, I am your God. I am your God, and you didn't listen to me, which means you're in the situation that you are. Now, what do you do if you're talking to people about God's judgment and dismiss you as being judgmental? Don't judge me. Sometimes I believe that it's how we say it to them. Now look, I'm going to tell you this right now. If they don't believe in God, you're not going to make them believe in God. Yes?
If I could share, I was just reading in Corinthians.
Mm-hmm.
Paul is talking about to the church, and he's saying, I hang out with, I'm going to paraphrase, I hang out with people, but I try to, even though I don't agree with them, he tries to blend in. They were talking about the meat, and he goes into great detail where, there's some people out there that they weren't his favorites to hang out with, but he would just kind of blend in so he could
deliver his message.
Then warm up to him, and then things would change.
Yeah, he was always, to me, and I say Paul was one of those kind that would, as I say, he'd walk in anywhere and start preaching Jesus Christ.
Right.
So a lot of people didn't like him, mainly because that was his story. That was him all the time. He didn't really talk about anything else. He just came in, when he got to town, he was talking Jesus Christ. He had an argument for Jesus Christ all the time. And so when people, and he rubbed the authorities and the head people the wrong way, is because he's preaching Jesus Christ and he's not asking anybody for anything. He's just there talking about Jesus Christ.
And he's saying, I'm not getting paid for this.
Right. And he's saying that, God, that my reward is in heaven. That's my reward. Because he said to die is to gain. He said, I gain when I die. But I'm torn between, dying and receiving my reward or staying here with you.
And showing you the way.
Yeah, and trying to show you the way.
Stay here with us and be called a hypocrite.
Right. Right.
He had a tough road to hoe.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Right when the man upstairs called you, he can call you anytime and every time.
Anytime he wants, when you get that call.
Like my dad. He called my dad, and it was my time for my dad to go upstairs.
Right. He called it. He called it. So, if people are going to call you just judgmental, when you're talking about the warnings, I mean, you just continue. I mean, remember that Jesus said, I didn't come to condemn, I came to save. But he reminded you of the way of what you were doing. You know. So he reminded them of what they were doing. Now, if you look at verse 11. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under an oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abizarite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianite. Now here we find Gideon threshing wheat or working just like we found King David working. Okay? Now, the angelic or heavenly being appears under an oak tree in the town of Ophrah. This is a town. And I misspelled Oprah here. That's supposed to be O-P-H. So you add an H, and I don't know how I keep missing this. Because I'm just fascinated about the story of Gideon. I'm really fascinated about it. Now, on the property of Joash, the father of Gideon. Now, Abizarites were of the tribe of Manasseh, of one of the 12 tribes. So you see that this linkage is tied back.